Welcome back to another episode of Transformation Talks. I'm your host, Sam Forget, and today we'll be joined by Aram Grigorian, a nutrition coach, co host of the Other Side Lifestyle podcast, and host of the Real Coaches Summit. Aram, thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Always good to see you. Always good to chat with you. It doesn't happen often enough, unfortunately.
I know. I do hope whenever the next time I'm stateside, I can time it so I go to the next Real Coaches Summit. This year will be tricky because of visa stuff that I won't bore everybody with, but it's a high priority thing for me to attend whenever the next time I am in the US is.
Well, especially with how much drama you had to deal with coming to the last one.
Yeah, yeah, I
That
forgot about that. That
travel
was
itinerary was a nightmare.
yeah, from Mexico to Vegas and somehow took 30 something hours start to finish, but we made it for day
You,
two. And
you made it.
actually, I'll circle back to the Real Coaches Summit at the end of this episode, but I'll just say now, hands down, one of the best conferences that I've been to in close to 14 years in the industry now. So I've seen a lot of different setups, a lot of different structures to this stuff. Have been underwhelmed with many of the same things that led to you creating this conference and approaching it differently. But again, I'll circle back to that later.
Thanks,
I
man.
think,
It means a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, of course. I think a great place for us to start is actually with your Instagram handle, 4 weeks to the beach, because, and I'm sure you've talked about this a million times, but I know when I first started seeing your content and I saw at 4 weeks to the beach, my first thought is this guy trying to say it can be beach ready in 4 weeks? And I'm sure some other people who are discovering your stuff now might be wondering about that. So where does the 4 weeks from the beach thing come from?
So I thought it was just going to be like a catchy name. That's literally why I started it. And you know Ali Gilbert. And I remember when I first changed my Instagram handle to 4 weeks to the beach. I remember Ali texted me and she goes, "That's stupid. That's not going to catch. You should change it." And I'm like, you know what? Respectfully, I'm going to keep it and see what happens. And then 49,000 followers later. It's the one thing I get to hold over Allie's head to this day, which I don't
Yeah.
get to hold many things over her head because she's fucking far past me successfully. But it really is the concept of being at the ready, perpetually living in a very high quality state of maintenance to where if you have something going on that you want to be a little bit more aesthetically confident for, you don't have to like pull out all the stops and restrict and overhaul all of the behaviors and habits. And the best example I can give you is like right now, actually, is a perfect example. I'm going to Florida Friday through Sunday and or Monday rather. And I'm going to like a rave on Saturday night. So people are going to be half naked. So like, I want to keep up with the Joneses because we all have vanity goals and I never poo-poo those goals. So instead of me like starting to worry about this 3 months ago, I know that my behavior on average is usually so good relative to what I would like it to be, that I don't have to like go crazy and like do all of this shit to prepare for this weekend. I can literally just be like, okay, cool. I'm not going to eat out the weekend before, or if I am, it's going to be less indulgent. I'm not going to over snack at night after dinner. I'm going to keep my calories where they need to be. I might plug in a couple of half-hour cardio sessions just to get a little bit extra calorie burn to feel good and feel a little bit less water retentive and kind of, fuller. And that's it. Like, it's minimal little changes for this maximal amount of confidence that I can walk into the weekend with, knowing that, like, who gives a shit? At the end of the day, nobody's going to look at me on Saturday night and be like, oh, he only has two abs instead of four. Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're in a crowd of 500 people. And, like, it's really more of your own perception of yourself within that environment. And I think everybody deserves to feel confident, whether it's at a pool party or going to a vacation with their family or having to show up in a dress to some occasion that you might want to have your arms exposed, your back exposed. Like, I understand that people, especially women, have aesthetic goals, but you can't live in a state of vanity and not actually have behaviors that are placating to that vanity. Like a lot of people are disappointed that they don't look the part, but when you audit their behavior, like, well, why the fuck would you look the part? You do nothing to contribute to the vanity that you have. You eat like shit. You don't train hard enough or often enough. You go to sleep at midnight every day. You drink all the time. Your weekends look like spring break almost every weekend. You eat whatever the hell you want. You don't also get to complain that you don't look the part. If you want to look the part, you have to act the part, and that means showing up all the time. It doesn't mean like you and I both never preach restriction, but there has to be some semblance of control on average.
Funny enough, you and I mentioned this on your podcast, I guess, I don't know, a year and a half ago now. You were one of the first people that made me feel more comfortable, even mentioning the word restriction or being stricter, or like all of these things that I think for a little while got to be like dirty words in our industry of, I mean, a full range of things like you need to be stricter, you need to say no, like no tips, tricks, or hacks or workarounds. Maybe you do need to go down to 12 to 1400 calories. All of these things that I think a lot of people were, myself included, were hesitant to acknowledge because I think the industry swung really far for a little while. But yeah, I mean that's absolutely the case. One of the questions that we got submitted before, and try that again. One of the questions we got submitted before, I'm reading three things at once, that I think would be great to ask now is, okay, where this person lives, they have about 20 weeks before it's beach season, and they've been in a bit of a fitness slump, and they're wondering where to start with getting out of that slump. Like you mentioned, a lot of the things that people struggle with, but if somebody just feels in a rut across the board, they're thinking ahead, okay, I don't want to wait until I'm a few weeks out from beach season. I want to start doing something now. What are some places you'd recommend this person starts?
First and foremost, reasonable expectation setting. Like depending on what your starting point is, because like let's say this individual is starting now. Are you 40% body fat or are you 25% body fat? I'm going to assume it's a woman.
Yes,
I work with mostly women. I think you work with mostly
I do
women.
as well. Yes.
So let's say this is a woman. Like if you're 40% body fat, are you going to show up to the beach and be 25% body fat in 20 weeks? Not without a lot of really extreme protocols and a lot of restriction and a lot of precision. And do you want the next 20 weeks of your life to be miserable for this very minimal payoff that you're probably not going to be able to sustain at that 20-week mark anyway? So just being very realistic about what's going to happen at the end of those 20 weeks, depending on what you do now and how you conduct yourself over those 20 weeks. Then it's about understanding what is the problem you're trying to solve. Am I solving for fat loss? Am I solving for muscle gain? Am I solving for performance enhancement? It's really going to be one of those three levers that that person has to pull. If it's a fat loss lever, again, reasonable expectations. For most people, I don't want to see them losing more than a pound a week. And that's just a very broad base term. Like I know for some people they like to use like 0.7 to, 1% of body mass, as far as like a weight loss target. But I just tell people like if you're losing more than a pound a week, you're doing something you're not going to be able to sustain and you're probably going to be miserable doing it. So I don't know, quarter to a half a pound a week here and there, maybe a couple pounds a month. So 20 weeks is what? 5 months,
Oh, yeah.
about. So in 5 months, can you lose, if you have it to lose? I don't know if you do, but can you lose 10 to 20? Yeah, you probably can. I don't think that's unreasonable. Um, maybe not 20, but probably more like 10 to 15. Is that going to make a meaningful difference in your aesthetic? Are you going to have that much more confidence? I think people are, especially women, I think they're still tied to this idea that confidence comes after the result is had. I truly believe that confidence happens along the way just because you start actually following through on the shit that you said you were going to do. Because so many people are like, yes, are you going to be in an aesthetic that's going to be massively different in 20 weeks? Of course not. Anybody that thinks or believes that is being sold the same lies that every woman has believed for the last 60 years by the fitness industry, which is this is going to happen fast and it's going to be easy and you're going to be able to have all the balance in the world while you do it, which you and I both know is just unreasonable and just untrue. So I think that once you start saying, hey, I'm just going to commit, like I know that my quality of life right now sucks. I know that my sleep sucks. I know that my mood sucks. I know that my energy sucks. I know that my digestive system is horrible. My weekends are wildly different than my weeks. Like I just need to get on solid ground so I can start taking better care of myself at a fundamental level so that at least my quality of life daily improves, which means my perception of myself will improve and then my general outlook on life will improve. I'll just be a more positive person when I'm feeling better. That alone might take somebody to that 20-week mark and their body hasn't significantly changed, but their mind has changed. And now they feel better in their own skin. I know for me, if my sleep is off, if my food consumption is erratic, my body image suffers. Nothing changes physically. I might be a little more bloated. I might, see some lines on myself look a little different because of the water retention, but nothing has physically changed overnight or in a 72-hour period. But my perception of myself is, ooh, I don't want to put that in front of anybody. And I get it. Like I'm not any different than any woman who's worried about how she looks. I have the same insecurities very often times. I mean, how many times have you seen a woman 18-20% body fat who looks absolutely amazing, especially in her 40s and 50s, who's beating herself up over cellulite or rolls or this or that or skin folds or this, it's like you're you're so elite that you're now pushing the goalpost even further away from yourself. How long do you want to play this game for until you can finally settle in on a physique that you're actually comfortable with? And it's just people have a tough time accepting that. It's unrealistic expectations of how fast it's going to be, the magnitude of the change that's going to occur in a short period of time. And then what are the action steps that are being taken to get there? Because if you start going from zero exercise to 7 days of exercise a week, what happens at the 20-week mark when now it's summertime and you're on the boat every weekend or you're going out every weekend? You're not working out 7 days a week anymore. So goodbye calorie expenditure. Hello, increased calorie consumption. Watch body composition start to shatter from where it was before. So, is it worth it?
Yeah, I love how the first thing you thought of there is expectations and kind of the frame around what success is. And I was actually just talking to a client about this with the example of workout frequency. And the example I gave was if you commit to training 3 days per week, and that's the on paper plan, and you train 3 days per week, fucking awesome. That's great. If you were to stick with that for even 6 weeks, you're probably 95th percentile for consistency already. If you're doing 3 days per week for 6 weeks. But if the on paper plan is 4 days per week and you get 3 days in, because the frame for success is different, all of a sudden
Yep.
3 days, an awesome thing in itself, because the
Yep.
frame around that action was a little bit different. All of a sudden it feels like you're coming up short. It feels like a failure. And I see this all the time, of course, with nutrition and weight loss, where if there aren't proper expectations set, if 3 pounds per month, almost 40 pounds per calendar year somehow sounds too slow to you or like a failure of some kind, if you're doing really well, you could be under the misconception that you're not doing well enough, which leads to you getting discouraged, throwing in the towel. When if we just change that initial expectation and the frame around what success is, that could be the secret sauce for you consistency wise.
Everything comes down. People's disappointments and frustrations almost always stem from unreasonable or unmet expectations, whether that be with fitness, relationships, work, communication with other people, whatever it is. If you expect X and Y happens, you're disappointed. So either the way that I coach my clients is I set the bar abysmally low. Like because my expectations of humans is abysmally low. And this is going to sound like a very elitist thing to say, but like people like you and I, like everybody else, I call them other normal people. I call Gen Pop individuals normies. Normies don't flip over the food item at the grocery store to look at the label. Normies don't look at menus at restaurants ahead of time to see if it's conducive to their eating habits. Normies don't go and work out on the weekends. Normies, when they travel, will never look for a gym locally to see if they want to go pop into one. So I'm not a normal person. I know my clients are all normal people, usually coming into it. So I expect them to know absolutely nothing. I expect them to be completely unreasonable. I expect them to be completely emotional. And that's where we start. And if you prove me otherwise, then I'll elevate my standards and my hopes for you. But if not, I'm going to keep you so bottom of the barrel basement that any little thing you do in the right direction is a celebration and a win. And
I,
that it builds momentum over time.
what stands out to me there, the prove me wrong. I always tell people you have to earn the right to a greater intensity level with the plan. If you're not even, consistently landing in a moderate deficit, I'm not pulling you down to some super aggressive weight loss protocol. If you have yet to do, say, 3 days or honestly even 2 days per week of training for 6 weeks, it doesn't make sense for you to pick the flashy 5 day a week program. And if you don't think that's enough, again, show me, knock
Yeah.
this out for even a month and a half, which most people don't do. And then if you've done, yeah, and if you've done that and you still want to do more, fine, we can consider it. But I also think most people drastically underestimate how much they can get out of an even moderately intense plan when done far more consistently. So you think you want to jump up to 5 days per week, but then you crush 3 days per week for a month and you go, oh, actually, I noticed some visual differences. I feel a bit tighter. I'm stronger. I don't even necessarily know if I want to ramp up from there. Same thing for a calorie target. You think you want to keep dropping. How about hit your existing target first before we look to drop it for some sort of kickstart? And what you'll find is, oh, I'm actually good here, keeping a bit more food on my plate.
But my question is why? Like I've never understood. I kind of put women into two categories. And then you have like this very gray area in the middle, which certainly exists as well. You have the woman who over exercises and undereats. When you over exercise and undereat, your gap of opportunity doesn't exist. You're already eating little and training a lot. So, like, where else do I have to go? Then you have the woman who doesn't do shit at all and overeats. That's a massive gap of opportunity because I can add in a little bit of exercise and I can change eating a little bit, and now I'm getting closer. But I still have all this room in the middle to grow. I don't see a ton of people in the middle because when I used to coach back in the day when I first started, I would have people track their food without parameters given first. I'm just like, hey, just track what you eat, which anybody that doesn't have any experience tracking or doesn't have a lot of consistency with their tracking, you know how much human error lies in tracking. I mean, it's wild the amount of error that we see with human food consumption and reporting. But now I like to give them clear guidelines. Like if your goal is fat loss, this is where we're going to start. If your goal is muscle gain, this is where we're going to start. So I give them very hard parameters. I need you to hit 90% minimum of your protein target. If you're a fat loss focus, you can't exceed 105% of your calories on average. If you're a performance-based focus, I want you to live within 90 to 110% of your calorie target. So now they have marching orders. So now it's, yes, I'm going to eat this way, but I'm going to stay within these guidelines. And now I have a little bit of a clearer picture on what the hell I have to do every day. Because leaving people to their own habits, we know how bad they already are. And it's not even that they're bad habits, it's that they're just inconsistent. There's no predictability in how they eat, there's no structure in how they eat. Every meal is a free for all. There's no semblance of any level of regularity. But once you get somebody onto like an actual structured, hey, I'm going to eat 3 to 5 times a day, every day. Like, let's just start there. I have a college kid I'm working with right now. She's the daughter of a client of mine. I'm not going to have her track her fucking food when she lives in a dorm and she eats out of a food hall every day. But I told her, I said, like, you came to me eating whenever, however. Let's change that to eating 3 to 5 times a day. And this was what should be on your plate. That's it. Let's start there. And then let's graduate from that when we need to. Because eventually, yes, like you're going to see some initial results just by adding in more structure. But then eventually, as you get leaner, you're going to be exposed to having to work harder to achieve more if you want more. Now there's no choice but to install precision. Because if we don't have specific data, and it's not, I think sometimes people look at food tracking as like a prison or as restrictive. I look at food tracking as an opportunity to see what your body's capable of at its highest limit. So instead of you living in this false pretense that like tracking is something that's holding you back from eating, let's reframe that and actually show you what is your body calorically capable of as a threshold. How high can I push that number up and have you eating as much as humanly possible to still arrive at the result that you want, as opposed to living in this calorie purgatory that so many people find themselves stuck in because they never quite get consistent enough to reach those heights. And then they never earn that proverbial flexibility that they've been looking for so long.
I think most people are surprised with where their maintenance actually is. The vast majority of people, especially women who will submit a coaching application, start a conversation, automatically assume that they need to eat next to nothing. But when you crunch the numbers and do some estimates, they might be maintaining, depending on their starting point, at 2,200 or even 2,000. So we could get
Yeah.
you at 15 to 1,700 calories to start. But if you've never really had that data because you've lacked structure and you've lacked awareness, and we're just guessing, you're going to probably end up overshooting where you need to be deficit
Yep.
wise. Going, a diet is inherently unsustainable, of course, but probably creeping a bit too far into that territory where you're just going to slingshot in the other direction.
Yeah, and let's see, I have 115 people I work with right now. I think five of them are guys, so let's call it 110 women. Maybe 12 to 15 of them are north of 2000,
Hmm.
maybe. The rest of them are somewhere between 14 and 1900. Here's the thing, women are smaller people. Right, like when we talk about female fat loss, we have to very distinctly understand female physiology, and I think a lot of coaches just are bad at this, and they're bad at it, understanding it, they're bad at communicating it, which then sets up their audience to not understand their own situation or predicaments better. So our responsibility as coaches is to put out real information and practical information to get people to think differently and to be able to use discernment on what content is appropriate for them and what content isn't appropriate for them. I got into a heated debate with a coach online who had Stacy Sims on her podcast, and they were talking to women. Their audience, or at least their goal audience, was lean women who are suffering from REDS, which is relative energy deficiency syndrome, which is basically just a very complicated term for saying they eat too little based on how much they actually move. So now they're suffering from low energy availability, low calorie intake, which means now their body is kind of fighting this very slow uphill battle on the lowest amount of fuel possible. Is it a problem? Yeah, of course. Hormonally, all sorts of things will start to happen. Fatigue will occur. Mood will start to worsen. Digestive symptoms will start to occur. So, yes, that's a problem. But when a woman comes across that video clip and the video clip says that calorie intake doesn't matter for fat loss and you should be eating more to lose weight, and that woman who sees that content is 45% body fat and should not be eating more calories, that's giving that woman permission to do something that is wildly inappropriate for her. And that's the danger. I don't want to say danger because nobody's going to die anytime soon because of this advice, but it's inappropriate information delivery because there's no context spoken. Now, granted, it was from a podcast. It was a clip cut from a podcast. So I understand that there are limitations to content creation, but women have to understand that like you're smaller, you naturally have more body fat than a man. You naturally have less muscle mass than a man. So automatically you are set up to have much lower calorie thresholds, which means that when you diet, it will be more uncomfortable. 2,000 calories, however you slice it, is 2,000 calories, whether you're a man or a woman. We've all seen what I mean, we have, not all of us, but you and I have seen what 2,000 calories of food looks like. Big difference of 2,000 calories of food versus 1,500 calories of food versus 1,000 calories of food. And how do we strategically make that go as far as it possibly can from a volume perspective so we can be as satiated and satisfied as possible? So all of these considerations have to be taken into place. And unfortunately, without any hard evidence or hard data on what the average or normal consumption pattern of that individual is, we're just guessing and we're hoping. And you and I mean, when we first start with somebody, we give them a calorie intake range that we think is appropriate, but we have to watch them execute and meet that parameter before we assess if something has to change. So if I tell you, hey, I believe your maintenance calories to be 1,600, but you're constantly coming in at 1,470 on average, and you're never quite hitting that 1,600, we're not seeing anything happen to weight. Well, you have this upward room that you're not using. So get up to that place. Like, let me see you eat 1,600. And if then we see weight still flat, that's probably evidence I can even go higher than that. Let's go higher. Because when we do inevitably have to go into a deficit to peel back fat mass and reveal whatever muscle you are trying to show and build, well, now we're not dieting at a lower number. We're dieting at a higher number. So that's great. But it's still going to suck. Dieting, voluntarily eating less is never going to be ideal or easy. That's why we shouldn't do it very often. I tell most people like spend 9 to 10 months a year trying to build muscle and strength and spend 2 to 3 months a year trying to burn fat. And if you do that for the rest of your life, eventually you'll stop dieting and you'll just be at a place that you're happy with maintaining, and you've reached the Garden of Eden.
For sure. Now, what would you tell somebody who hears that advice of, okay, 9 months kind of hanging out at maintenance, let's develop strength, muscle, structure, habits, 3 months of dieting, but they just heard us talk about pace of progress and they know, well, in 3 months, I'm probably not going to reach my weight loss goals. If they do want to lose, let's say 30, 40, 50 pounds, do you feel like that advice still applies to that person or do you kind of change
Yeah.
things a little bit? Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, you give me somebody who's wildly obese, and I'm talking 45, 50% body fat, you know, 60, 80, 100 pounds to lose. Can I spend a longer amount of time with that individual in a fat loss focus? Of course I can, because that person has a lot of fat to lose, and they probably haven't even exhausted the first two or three options yet. Like it's not by accident that that individual is 300 pounds, right? Like they've had to consistently overconsume and undermove for years and years and years to accumulate that level of body fat. So for that individual, just getting regimented with movement. I mean, getting that, I mean, most of these people are not moving more than 5,000 steps a day. They're not doing zone 2, 3 cardio. You know, they're not watching what they eat. They don't have any idea how many calories are actually coming in. So once we develop some structure in that individual, that person can lose 40 or 50 pounds in the first year with very minimal effort, just by eating like an adult and spending more time thinking about it. But as you start to get down into the lower body fat levels, now we're starting, 28, 25, like these are relatively lean, muscular women. How much do you want to beat the shit out of yourself to go lower? And, again, for the woman who's got a lot of fat to lose, you know, losing 100 pounds can happen in 2 or 3 years. For the woman who's trying to really like recomp, which I've changed my mind a lot about, we can certainly discuss that. You're talking about a much longer road to look like you lift. Most body transformations to go from I don't look like I lift to I do look like I lift takes somewhere in the avenue of 2 to 5 years. Like that's basically what I've seen over the last 16 years is about 2 to 5 years is you show me that proverbial before and that proverbial after, and to go from I have no muscle definition at all or lines whatsoever to I walk into a room and people have no reservations and they know I lift weights. It's about a 2 to 5 year process for most women. So just plug in. And then also, here's the other secret. Now you got to keep doing that shit forever. If you want to maintain that look and that quality of life and that standard of living, well, guess what? You've just now signed up for all of those actions to be taken now until you die. Now, there's going to be fluctuations along the way. You're going to have to take care of elderly parents. Kids are going to get sick. Jobs will be lost. Relationships will dissolve. Dogs will die. Bad shit will happen and it will derail you. But the people that are true fitness people don't get derailed for very long. Like I was sick last week. For 4 days, I didn't give a shit what I put in my mouth. I was eating 4,500 calories a day, which is 1,000, 1,200 over my budget. I was ordering food when I didn't really need to because I had a fridge full of food I didn't care to eat. I wasn't exercising at all because I didn't have the energy to do it. Did my body composition just immediately evaporate and erode to something that I would never be even recognized? No, of course not. Like, yeah, I mean, it was like I didn't weigh myself because I don't give a shit, but like, yeah, my normal visible lab lines were a little bit blurred. I felt a little bit softer and mushier because I wasn't training my muscles. I was fucking lethargic. I didn't give a shit because for 4 days I treated myself like an amusement park. But then after 4 days, I'm like, I don't like how I feel. I'm already adding on top of a problem, which is I'm sick, and now I'm making myself even less apt to recover because I'm not giving my body the nutrients it needs, and I'm punishing myself with eating like an asshole. So I just stopped. I made a choice because my standard of the way I want to feel is higher than the average person. And I think when you start to equate your habits to a quality of life standard, you're no longer worried about the timeline. You just want to maintain that standard of living. I don't tolerate feeling like shit. I don't tolerate runny poops. I don't tolerate lethargy. I don't tolerate cognitive dysfunction. I want to operate at a higher level. And when people demand that higher level, it's no longer about aesthetics anymore. The aesthetic becomes a nice little byproduct, but now the actions are easier to take because it becomes like brushing your teeth. Like I know I want good dental hygiene and not have shitty smelling breath. I'm going to brush my teeth twice a day. I'm going to also use floss. I'm going to also use mouthwash. I'm going to eat well because I want to feel good.
Perfectly said. And something I want to go back to is the topic of actually looking like you lift. Obviously, a lot of people are exclusively scale focused and they make that their metric of success. I just want to see things go down as much as possible, as quickly as possible. But for somebody who does want to have that look, they're buckled up for, okay, this is going to take me a couple of years. I'm aware of that. I'm going to go through a few cycles of maintenance, some time in a deficit. But I want to make sure that I approach my training the right way to support this goal. High level, how would you suggest that somebody structure their workouts? What types of things are they prioritizing to have the most visual possible results? We're going pure vanity here. I actually like how you said you're not somebody who shits on that goal. I think a lot of people are still nervous to say, yeah, I just want to look better and get healthy too. It's okay to say, I just want to look better. Ideally there's some other goals thrown in the mix, but that's fine. So for somebody who does say, yeah, I want to look super fit, I want to be toned, I want this stuff, how are they approaching their training?
Again, what problem do we have to immediately solve for? Are you abundantly over fat and we can't see any muscle on you whatsoever, but there's muscle underneath because it's been built before? Well, now we have to peel fat mass down low enough to be able to expose whatever muscle you have. So it's almost like kind of clearing the slate. Um, I used to not like putting people into fat loss focused phases at first because I wanted them to develop habits. But now I do both simultaneously. I want them to develop habits with their eating and their training, but I also want them to start seeing results because that obviously is wildly more motivating than just floundering and hoping. So for most people, it's like most people like are not walking around visibly muscular. I mean, like, your average woman is, I think in America, is 35% body fat. If you looked at that person, picture a 55-year-old sinewy person at the grocery checkout line who has fat on her arms, fat around her belly, and no visible muscle mass. That's your average female in America. How long is that woman going to have to take? And what approach does she have to take? Well, let's get fat mass down first. We don't even know what we're working with underneath yet. Let's just get fat mass down as low as comfortable, at least in the initial phases, and let's get her to at least feel better. Because at that point, because she probably comes from the era of smaller is better, she's already going to start to have a buy-in and some level of like, oh, I feel better. I've lost weight. The scale's down from 170 to 155. This is awesome. Do we want to neglect lifting weights with that individual? No. I think every human being, period, should be lifting at least twice a week. Like if you're not lifting at least 2 times per week, you're not giving yourself any ounce of chance to at least maintain whatever little muscle you already have. And for some people, 2 times a week might even grow muscle based on where their average lifting frequency already is. If they're lifting 0 times a week, 0 to 2 times is going to increase their chance to growing muscle exponentially. They're going to run out of runway relatively quickly. Like you're looking at probably a 6 to 12 month stint of 2 times a week, which will no longer be effective to them unless they start pulling up, intra-session volume and adding sets and reps, as opposed to extrapolating that over more days per week. But I think 2 times a week should be a minimum for everybody. 3 times a week gives you a better chance for growth because now you can kind of delineate volume across different body parts and the muscle areas. Generally speaking, we're looking at the science suggesting that anywhere between 4 and 10 working sets per muscle per week is going to grow muscle for most people. As we start to get from like the beginner to intermediate and then from the intermediate to the advanced lifting age. And again, like lifting experience, the years you've spent lifting means very little to me when you tell me on paper, especially if I hear you had a group fitness background. Because in a group fitness environment, you're not targeting any specific muscle group. You're just kind of chaotically lifting at a fast pace with suboptimal or submaximal weights. You're not taxing any specific tissue. It's very much global fatigue. Like, so the whole body gets messed up versus the quads or the hamstrings or the biceps getting any direct work. Nothing is really being brought to actual mechanical failure. So the body's not really perceiving the tension it needs to perceive to physically have the growth outcome. So if you've told me I've done 8 years of Orange Theory, I'm going to tell you that you've done very little to promote muscle growth. You've done something in the initial 3 to 6 months, but after that, you were tapped out and you just kept spinning your wheels. Same thing with CrossFit, same thing with F45, same thing with Pilates, same thing with yoga. Like that means very little. If you've been in a gym setting for 8 years using progressive overload, and I can look at a set of yours and be like, ooh, that person knows what they're doing, that's going to be a candidate for 4+ sessions per week. Like you're not that individual is not going to grow on 2 or 3 days per week. That individual is going to need at least 4 sessions per week where you're probably splitting it up upper body, lower body twice per week. And you're probably looking at 8 to 15 working sets per week now for that individual, at least per body part to get those body parts to grow under the condition of adequate protein consumption, which we're going to be looking at least zero point 0.8 grams of protein per pound of ideal desired body weight. And we're going to be looking at maintenance calories, at least. I don't think that women need to go into a surplus very often. I think women carry around enough body fat on average to be able to pull from those stored reserves. But there are going to be women who are on the leaner side who may have to go into a 5 or 10% surplus here and there. And they might have to accept that, gaining a little bit of weight is part of the process. But let's put it this way. If we're seeing like 2 pounds of weight gain a month and somebody's relatively advanced at lifting, that's not muscle. That's fat. That's fat. That's water. That's not muscle. You're not gaining 2 pounds of muscle per month. An advanced lifter who's been at it for 5+ years, who has levered, progressive overload strength training, is probably going to look at 2 to 5 pounds of muscle per year if they're lucky and if they're doing everything right. Now, your novice to intermediate woman can probably put on a half a pound to a pound a month for a little while of muscle because she just doesn't have the exposure or the stimulus to that muscle tissue yet. But again, that runs out of runway so goddamn quick. Let's put it this way, guys, who's ever listening. Fat loss is way more noticeable in the short term and way easier to achieve than muscle gain will ever be. Muscle gain is like the way that I've heard it explained in the most practical way is like rip a piece of hair off your head and stick it on a wall and paint over it, and then rip another strand of hair off your head and put it exactly on that other strand that's been painted on, and continue doing that and let me know how long it takes for that hair to actually stick out of the wall. It's going to probably take half a head of hair to get any meaningful, visible protrusion. That's muscle growth. And it doesn't really show up on the scale, obviously, at all. DEXA scans fuck it up. In-body scans fuck it up, especially if you're on the fatter side and you're not consistently hydrating well and eating properly. So we don't like, it's very difficult to measure muscle growth. Like we can certainly look at like circumference measurements around parts of the body. We can look at strength inside the gym. Like typically speaking, if your strength is going up, it's safe to assume maybe some muscle is being grown. But then that's not always the case either, because look at a power lifter versus a bodybuilder. There's a lot of power lifters that are really fucking strong, but there's really no hypertrophy. You don't really get much bigger. And on the opposite extreme, we have a lot of bodybuilders who are massive, but they're not very strong. So we have to always take these proxies and these metrics very carefully and very individually.
It's funny. A teenage Sham would have thought that not only was 2 pounds of muscle per month possible, but 30 pounds in a summer for sure. If I just get the right program off T Nation or Muscle and Fitness and jack up my protein to 2 pounds per pound of body weight, like 100%. And I think it was, it's a bit of a side tangent now, but I think it was like movie culture where you'd always hear this actor put on 35 pounds of muscle in 2 months, do the 300 movie workout or the
Yeah.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
workout, the Thor
Yeah.
workout. I'm like, all right, bet I'm gonna be 225 pounds and 8% body fat by my senior year. But yeah, like you
Oh
said,
my
I was,
God. I wish. I wish,
yeah.
dude. Like I was 185 for a majority of my life, up until about 31 years old. That's when I got diagnosed with hypogonadism, which means that my testicles were not naturally producing testosterone anymore. And that was due to drug abuse, poor sleep, high stress, and a pretty long bout of extreme dieting. So my endocrine system essentially just like, well, we're done. Which is what women start to experience in those low energy availability states, especially now entering into perimenopause. But I was 185 for my whole life. Add in TRT at 31 years old, my natural walking around weight went from 185 to 215 relatively quickly, 6, 8 months, just by my system going back online. I put on a lot of lean tissue. I added some fat too, but mostly lean tissue. But then, like, over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, that 210 looked a hell of a lot different. And my 210 now looks way better than my 185 did at 31. And so at 42, I look and feel better, heavier than I did at 185. And that's your evidence of body composition, how important muscle mass is when you're lean. Because that's the issue, right? Like a lot of people can build muscle mass, but they have so much fat on top that they don't really get to enjoy the muscle mass. And that's where it's like, okay, let's solve, like you already have the muscle there. Like if you're somebody who's lifting 3 or 4 times a week, that no longer is going to be conducive to looking like you lift if you're carrying around significant amounts of body fat. So let's solve for the body fat problem and then get you into a place where you can actually see what you've built. And I think a lot of people just don't spend that time again because there's almost like an anti-diet culture now. It's like dieting is bad. aesthetics are bad, vanity is bad. It's all about health. It's all about longevity. It's like most people don't give a shit about health and longevity. Let's be honest. We have the Huberman and the Atia douchebags who want to optimize everything. And those people are usually looking like marathon runners anyway. So go ahead, enjoy your vitamin D and your sunshine. And then we have the other people who have absolutely no clue what they're doing, who will jump on every fad diet and eat as many GLP-1s as they can possibly get their hands on if they're not expensive enough. So then, fast fat loss, whether drug induced or not, is always going to result in muscle tissue dissolving as well, more so almost than fat. So we have this very interesting time that we live in where we have like the ultra longevity optimizers who are micromanaging every fucking thing on an ingredient label and don't even calories don't matter. It's only about ingredients. Then we have the I have no clue what's going on the left. There's really no middle ground. Like the middle ground is very weird now. It just doesn't exist. So half of my job and your job is figuring out where the hell on this spectrum are you and what is it that you really want? What is your bandwidth for doing it? And do you really want to make the sacrifices that you say you want to make? Because I don't see you doing this in the next 6 months. If this is where you start, like you're not going to be able to finish here. Like I know for me, I can very easily work out 3 times a week with weights. I can very easily commit 3 days of my week to cardio. I know that. I know under the worst possible circumstances, I could still maintain that level of effort. So for like that's cool. Like I don't want to work any harder than that. So I can walk around and I can look at all the bodybuilding content in the world and I can be jealous of dudes that are V tapered and walking around with no fat around their waist, but I don't want to do the work that they do. I don't want to like I want my legs to be bigger, but I don't want to do more leg work. You know what I mean? Like so I can't
Sure.
sit here and be like, "Oh man, my legs are too small," but I also don't want to do an extra 12 sets of legs. So I have to be okay with where my legs are at now. And that's it. And that's the hardest thing about the coaching process is like we know all this stuff and we have data to back it up for years and years and years. Your average person has no data, unreasonable expectations, and now they're comparing themselves to unrealistic standards on Instagram because they don't know how to filter out what's appropriate for them and what's not.
Actually, I think that's a great thing you mentioned at the end that we can focus on is how to filter for good information. You put up a post that you very kindly tagged me in a few weeks ago where you said like, "Hey, here's some real coaches. These aren't people who are just putting on a show on social media, playing a character. These are people who are actually working with human beings and put out good stuff." Which again, I appreciate. How does the average person like as we know, most people are equating follower counts with expertise. So they
Yeah.
see these massive podcasts, and understandably to a degree, it's like, well, obviously they're legit, right? If they have 1.5 million followers. When I honestly think about when I look at my network and the coaches that I would refer people to, the coaches that I would personally hire, a lot of them don't have that big of followings. It's almost always south of 100,000, if not well under that. There are exceptions, sure, but it's almost like this disproportionate thing in the other direction where you start getting to very, very high followings and there's some more red flags. So, I mean, there's that. But what else would you say that people look for when they're trying to decipher good information?
Is the information reasonable? Like, does it promise you, does it speak in very specific ways? Like, it gives you the exact thing to do. Like, do this many minutes of cardio. Well, how the fuck does that person who's creating content know how many minutes of cardio you should be doing? Like, I always, I'll post something and in the caption, I'll put, this is what I think to be the context you need for this post. And then I'll say, like, broadly speaking, I think everybody should be lifting twice a week. I think everybody should be doing 60 minutes of zone two cardio, regardless of where your starting point is, regardless of your goal. Like, if you're not meeting those minimum requirements, you don't have the requisite skill set yet to even worry about anything else. Like, get yourself to eating 3 to 5 times a day, get yourself eating at least 70% of your ideal body weight in protein. Get yourself drinking at least half your body weight in ounces of water. Get yourself doing at least 7,000 steps a day. Get yourself doing at least 60 minutes of moderate intensity cardio. If you can't do that, don't start asking me what your macros need to be. Don't start asking me for what the best workout for fat loss is. Like, you don't even have basic adult self-care skills yet. As far as filtering out the information that is, like timelines. Lose X amount of pounds in X amount of weeks. Run for the fucking hills immediately. Um, absolutes. Always, never. Anytime you see the verbiage of always, never, run for the hills. Like I'm never gonna say, never gonna say never. You're very infrequently going to hear me use absolutes unless I'm making broad-based statements about bare minimums. That's where I'll be very granular and say, like, I think this should be your baseline. Um, Controversy, like just wanting to always stir up controversy about a topic versus educating about it, like shitting on other people, stitch content. Like I think there are some people that do, like Joey Munoz, I think does a good job with stitch content. But like having to constantly stitch other people's videos means that you have no original thoughts yourself and you're just propping yourself up on the shoulders of others. And that's just a cheap way for you to get likes and views. And that to me is such a turn off. Constant supplement pushing. Like use this discount code for this product. Constant need to show yourself off. And I get that a lot of like female coaches run into this because they have a lot of female followers who want to look like them. So it's a lot of pictures of their ass or their bellies or their bikini shots. You're attracting the wrong type of audience. And the audience is now, with so little discernment, doesn't really understand that you're probably not speaking to them, right? Like, because you're a 31-year-old girl who's not married, who's a fitness professional, and you look amazing. Yeah, well, 45-year-old Mrs. Jones is going to find your content, and 45-year-old Mrs. Jones doesn't need to reverse diet when she's 40% body fat. So again, it's just like, is this person that I'm looking at even appropriate for me? Like I'm a 45-year-old mother of three and I'm following this 31-year-old influencer who clearly is an influencer, not an educator. So how do you know if somebody's an influencer versus an educator? Are they posting about themselves constantly? Are they talking about real life scenarios? Or are they just talking about anecdote? Are they, again, pushing supplement codes constantly and trying to get you to buy something? Are they even interacting in their comment section? Or are they just constantly giving you automated bullshit responses with a link to a fucking lead magnet? Can you DM somebody and get a response from them? Most of the time with the bigger accounts, you don't. Now, granted, there's like different folders now in the DMs of Instagram, so you have to kind of be careful. But like any good Instagram professional, any good coach knows to check all those different areas. Like my every single day, I spend most of my time on Instagram making sure that I'm answering people's comments, making sure I'm answering their DMs, and then going through like the hidden folder. Did I miss anybody? Is it spam? Is it a real person? So even just stuff like that, attention to detail, but it's not hard to see who the bullshit artists are versus who aren't, because the more sensational their claims are, the more they're trying to sell you something to be the authority figure. And the easier they make it seem, the more bullshit it probably is. Like the most reasonable, boring, tedious advice is probably the appropriate advice you should be looking for.
100%. I look at this will seem random, but bear with me for a sec. The Spanish learning platform that I'm using now,
Okay.
very early on, they said it will take you about 1,500 hours of undistracted consumption of our videos to just not suck in a public interaction. We're not even saying that, you're going to be able to, do stand up in Spanish, but just to move beyond Forrest Gump Spanish that is geared toward learners, just to go out in the wild and generally be fine. 1,500 hours.
I love it.
Virtually every other platform that I looked at speak like a local in 4 weeks. And
You know, how?
obviously that stuff is extremely tempting, even as somebody who would say obviously that doesn't work with health and fitness. It is so tempting. But like you mentioned, like if we just pause for a second and think about it logically, there's no world where I'm going from turning bright red ordering a coffee to in Spanish to being able to have a conversation like a local in 4 weeks. And then even now, we talked about expectations matching effort. I have come to Argentina on and off for the last year and a half, and I've put sporadic effort into learning Spanish, and I have not maintained that effort often when I'm out of the country. So if you look on paper, oh, you've been there for a year and a half, your Spanish is probably pretty good now. Absolutely not. I am, maybe an A2 level. If you speak really slow, okay, fine. Still not really confident contributing in conversations, but I'm not frustrated with myself because my expectations and my abilities match the effort level or lack thereof that I've put in over the last year and a half. But yeah, it was the platform that attracted me the most was the one that said 1,500 hours. And actually, on their platform, they will give you updates and say, hey, at your current pace, it's going to take you 3.5 years to reach 1,500 hours. It doesn't say, 3.5 months or something like that. It's very clear. You can keep up with your 30 minutes per day and that's fine. But to reach the 1,500 hours you recommend, it's going to take you a couple of years. But I appreciated, I'm like, this is probably the one that's legit. If they're saying something that could lose the sale, which I actually think is another good audit for social media.
Oh, that's a
If
good
if a
point.
if a coach is telling you something that they're fully aware might make you run in another direction, that's probably a good coach to go to.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like transparency of pricing. Like I talk about my prices constantly, and they're dirt cheap compared to most people. Like the reason why I price my services as low as I do is because I want you to stay with me for longer than 6 months. Because what the fuck are we really going to do in 6 months? It's going to take you 90 days to get your shit together, just to get to a baseline. So that's 3 months. Then we have to like use the data from the last 3 months to influence the next 3 months. So that's 6 months already. Have you actually built any habits yet? Arguably, probably not. Like, do you remember the old adage was like 21 days to build a habit? Bullshit. Triple that at least, if not more. And then we also have to account for life being life. Like, again, death of a family member, death of a dog, financial distress, sickness, elder care, child care, travel. All of these life things are going to pop up. So, like, I've kind of figured out in a course of a year, we've got from February to May, people are decently focused on themselves, usually because there's not a ton of shit happening. You got spring breaks with kids, so maybe a couple of weeks here and there. Summer's throwaway, gone. Like just forget any compliance June through August at all. So basically, the end of May, we start to see people deteriorate, and they deteriorate through August until September when the pictures from the summer come back and they start seeing themselves on the boats and on the vacations, being like, ooh, I don't like that picture. January is a throwaway month now too because everybody's exhausted from the holiday season, which now starts in October and doesn't end until the end of December. So now January is the recovery month, so throw that month away. So we have January, which is dick happens in January. End of May, nothing through August, so that's another 4 months gone. September, October. September is the month of the year. Like I make more money in September than I make any other month because that's the time of year where they're in between holidays and at the end of the summer, so they're motivated, man. Like September is the new January. It used to always
100%.
be January, so where everybody's running back into the gym. Now it's September. And then that erodes again once Halloween candy comes out in the office. It's over. Now it's Halloween parties because everybody's now celebrating these bullshit events weeks in advance just to host a social gathering, which I'm not an antisocial person, but do you have to fucking say yes to everything from October to December? And if you do, how the hell do you expect to maintain any level of consistency when every week is another party where you have no control of your nutrition at all or little control of your nutrition? And because your schedule is bogged up, your training frequency and volume is going down. So we really like let's break it. We have February, March, April, May, September. So it's 5 months out of the year that I see like really decent compliance. Outside of that, it's a fucking disaster. And that's just human nature. And there's like, those are the people that will comply because they're given a reason to comply. Now, obviously, you and me know holidays are coming, shit's going to happen. We know how to adjust, we know how to adapt, we know how to be malleable. But your average person is still white knuckling it because they haven't built any of these habits. They don't routinely ingredient prep. They don't routinely eat 3 to 5 times a day. They don't time block their workouts based on their busy schedule. Their weekends are never monitored and controlled unless they're asked to do so. So there's still no level of autonomy or independence. And until somebody spends, I think, at least a year inside of a court, because coaching is mentorship. It's reframing mindset and perspective. It's not just here's calories, here's macros, here's workouts, good luck. It's why is it that when you know what to do, you're still not doing it? Because you're still going to bed at fucking 11 o'clock at night because it's still more important for you to soothe with a television, which you're not even paying attention to because you're scrolling on your phone while watching Netflix, which makes no sense to me. You're still pantry raiding at night because you're not eating throughout the day. You're still finding every reason why you can't train. You're still thinking that steps are cardio when you're not 300 pounds. There's still so many problems and gaps that we have to fill. We have to give people a long timeline. Like we got like I tell my people, like especially now that I have a $98 a month program, which is still full service nutrition and fitness. Like you're gonna be checking. Like I had a woman today. She's a fucking coach, dude, and she texted me this morning. She's like, "I'm not gonna fill out my form today. Today is the deadline for the monthly check-in people." I'm like, "You check in with me once a month. You signed up in January. Why would you forego a check-in and then not and now you're waiting until March for me to give you any feedback? What what sense does that at least take the effort to submit the form?" She's like, "Well, I don't have all the data." So sit down and see what needs to get cleaned up. I tell people very simply, like if you're tracking your food on any day that doesn't feel complete to you, that you left stuff out or you estimated too much of that day, just delete the whole day. So if I'm looking at Swiss cheese, then I know that you're not going to have a good month. Cool. At least I'm not looking at bullshit information because there's still a lot of coaches that are like, well, just give yourself some free meals and those meals you don't have to track. Okay, so now I pull up a 2 week data set and I see that 3 Saturdays in a row or 2 Saturdays in a row, you only ate 1,100 calories, which we know is bullshit because you had dinner that night with your husband and family, and we know that you exceeded 2,000, but you're not estimating the rest of the day. So it's bullshit information. It's little stuff like that, dude. It's that little stuff that people don't want to look at that is so easy for you and I to see because we do it. Because we're not, I mean, dude, you post about your meals out constantly. You estimate the calories of them. I have fun with that too. I mean, it's not hard for me to eclipse 4,500 calories on I mean, I go to a farmer's market, I grab a latte, I grab a pastry, I split a smash burger, I get a couple of slices of pizza, I eat a pasta dish, I have some dessert. That's easily 4,500 to 5,000 calories. And I can handle 3,500 because of my size. Mrs. Jones can't handle 3,500 calories a day. She's in a fucking 3,000 calorie surplus and she hasn't eaten shit because it's been liquid calories and fucking low volume, high calorie food. And it's just, I'm doing a seminar today at a local coffee shop and I'm going to make it a very easy point. I'm going to order a coffee with cold foam in it and I'm going to have them weigh out the cold foam just so I can prove a point and be like, if
That's
you guys give
great.
me 100 grams of cold foam and I can just pull up cold foam on Chronometer and I'll show you that 100 grams of cold foam is fucking 200 calories. But you were like, well, I just got, it's only on the top. Yeah. Okay. But that's 200 calories worth of shit on top. And it's just, it all adds up and it all matters. And all of these people online that are especially the speaking to the perimenopausal and menopausal community that's so worried about micromanaging their hormones. It's like, I got to optimize my hormones. I got to balance my hormones. It's like, why do you think your shit's out of balance? Like, yes, you're of the age where these things are falling off a cliff, which they're supposed to do because your body is no longer wanting you to reproduce. It's a natural occurrence. Like menopause and perimenopause are the indication that your reproductive systems are shutting down because they don't want the fetus to die. It's a protective mechanism. It's not a fuck you, we want you to be fat, but nature didn't give a shit about you wearing a bikini. Nature just cared about you procreating for as long as humanly possible to extend the human race. So after 45, nature just decided, hey, this is probably a risky time to have kids, so we're just going to shut this system off. Now, we have HRT now. We have nutrition coaches. We have all these resources for you to use so you can make adjustments as you enter into these phases of life and not suffer from all the problems that you see women suffering from online. But it takes some level of personal responsibility and it takes a level of understanding what are your own behaviors look like and managing and monitoring those behaviors to some degree. Because if you're truly as vain as you claim you are and you hate fat gain, then why the fuck are you allowing yourself to do it? Like that's what I've never understood. Like I can't be vain and also neglectful. That's a shitty recipe. Like it's either I'm going to be neglectful and also be a fucking happy fat person that doesn't give a shit, which I don't care. Like you're not obligated to lose fat. I'm not telling you you have to lose fat. You're telling me you want to lose fat. And I'm telling you the exact recipe on how to get there. And you're fighting me tooth and nail because you saw some idiot menopause shithead that told you that calories don't matter and you should be eating more and you have no idea what that means. So you just arbitrarily start shoving avocados down your throat. Like it's all so wild because again, there's more information now than ever. Everybody's got something to sell you. And They're just waiting for you to fuck up and say the wrong thing so they could slip another discount code into your email box. You're looking at information constantly and jumping from ideology to ideology because you can't stick to any one thing because you have no attention span, because you've trained yourself not to have one. And why do you think you have problems? Because you spent 20 years of your life not worrying about any of this stuff until it became really hard for you to worry about it now because your quality of life sucks and your hormones are a disaster. But that's because you've treated yourself like an amusement park for the last 25 years and you're also going into a hormonal decline naturally. It's all very difficult. And I don't ever want to invalidate how hard it is, but it's harder when you don't have an open mind about it. And it's harder when you don't want to take responsibility for it. And it's harder when you refuse to track data. So at least give yourself those opportunities. These things exist for a reason. You'll never be able to really accurately track calories burned, but you can at least to some degree track calorie intake. And that alone can be the saving grace from you at least not gaining weight in perimenopause. Because if a lot of women equate success to continuous forward progress, I equate success to you being outside the average norm. If most people are gaining weight of your age bracket and of your category and demographic and you're not, you're making progress. Simple as that. If it's the holiday season and everybody else is gaining weight around you and you're not, you're making progress. Like these little things are the stuff that people just don't want to consider because again, like the bar is being artificially raised by people who have no business raising it. Like I tell people all the time, it took me 26 years to arrive at this body. And I can certainly still tell you that I'm not wildly happy about it, but I'm also not disappointed with it. And I don't want to work any fucking harder than I do now. So I can't expect it to get any better. Like it is what it is right now. And I think if people could just give themselves that peace, but also the reality of understanding maybe I really wasn't paying attention. Maybe I let things slip through the cracks. Maybe I need to be a little bit more honest with myself. It's just an easier pill to swallow when you're the one responsible for all of it.
Yeah, I think it's significantly more empowering than kind of throwing up your hands, throwing in the towel. This is how things are because of X, Y, and Z. And like you mentioned, and like I want to reemphasize, certainly things do get harder. Like you, I don't want to invalidate that with age, with
Far
hormonal
none.
differences, etc. But you're not, I know it's so cliche to say now, but you're not broken, you're not damaged, you're not beyond repair, none of these things. And I do think so you mentioned the abundance of information on social media as well. So much of that information does well because it's purposefully polarizing and disempowering. And shock comes with a little solution and a supposed solution and a
Yeah.
program or a discount code at the end. Whereas the most honest, accurate information doesn't do nearly as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think beautifully said.
Dude, nobody wants to see our messy life. And that's why I post about my messy life. That's why I post about my overconsumption. That's why I post a screen every single day in my Instagram stories. You'll see the steps I took yesterday, what type of training I did or didn't do, and you'll see a screenshot of my chronometer every single day. Why? Because I want to show people A, it's not that hard to gather data, why that data is important, and what you can do with that data to change outcomes. Like if I know, like last week, again, perfect example. If I know that last week, every single day I was eating in excess of 4,000 calories, would I logically expect weight to have come up? Yeah. Even if it's not fat, which it wasn't, because it would take me a lot of overeating to gain an actual pound of fat. But if I'm running a consistent surplus for weeks and weeks on end, it would stand to reason that I should gain fat. I should at least see the scale come up just from stomach contents, water retention, fluid retention, all of these intracellular things that are happening. But people like freak out because they step on a scale on a Monday, which by the way, if you guys weigh yourselves on Monday, stop. Just don't weigh yourself until at least Wednesday, if not Thursday. And that's assuming you've actually had a decent week. Like the people that weigh themselves on Monday and then have like conniptions about it, and then they just rewind 2 days. What was your Saturday night like? Four cocktails, a basket of tortilla chips, Sunday brunch with the girls, Sunday afternoon dinner at my parents' house where everything was fucking covered in salt and fat. So now I'm just sitting around like a bloated tick. Yeah, okay. As a woman whose body is constantly dealing with hormonal flux, which changes fluid balance all the time, you might be 7 pounds heavier on Monday morning than you were on Friday afternoon. Does that mean that you gain 7 pounds in 48 hours of fat? Of course not. But you're going to freak out about it nonetheless. And then it's Sam and I's job to talk you off the ledge to make sure that it doesn't keep happening. But like, we have to just be a little bit like everybody's so logical and reasonable in areas of their life that they want to be logical and reasonable in. But for whatever reason, there's such an emotional drive towards body composition and weight. Like, you would never just, like, if you walked onto a used car lot and you saw the proverbial dude in a fucking plaid suit walking up to you with a gold tooth, disheveled with fucking barbecue sauce stains on his shirt, you're not going to buy a car from that guy. But the equivalent of that is selling you fat loss solutions daily on Instagram that you buy hook, line, and sinker. It's the
So
same
true.
used car salesman, just addressed in a different way. They might have a lab coat. They might have a whiteboard that they write shit on that doesn't matter, like Gary Brecka does all the time. They might have a medical profession that they've misrepresented, like Peter Attia, who's never actually practiced medicine a day in his life. They might have a really big podcast like Andrew Huberman, who actually has zero nutrition and fitness education whatsoever. He wrote his dissertation for his PhD on how the light interacts with your eyes, which, by the way, who gives a fuck? So, but these are the people you're listening to. You don't want to listen to me and Sam because we only have X amount of followers and we don't really look like we play the part. But you listen to these people and then wonder why you're still confused 5 years later.
I think that's a great mic drop moment, but I do want to ask one more question that was submitted ahead of time. I want to make sure we don't skim over that.
Yeah.
Somebody said, thoughts on multivitamins. At what point do they become part of a daily routine? And he did also mention he's now on the other side of 30. He's wondering about vitamins as he gets older.
Why not? I mean, if it's like I take I take life extension one a day. Does it make any meaningful difference? No, I don't know. If I stopped taking it, would my life fall apart? Absolutely not. Supplementation is so funny to me. There's documented use cases for some things, magnesium, vitamin D, fish oil, creatine. But is it going to like make some Absolutely not. Like the amount of questions I get about creatine, cool. It's 20 bucks a bag. Take it. Who gives a shit? If you have the 20 a month to spend on it, take it. But it would probably make more sense if you're looking at micronutrients to probably make sure that every meal contains either a fruit or a vegetable, to make sure that you're hitting a protein number that makes sense, to make sure that you're hitting a fiber number that might make appropriate sense. Because if you're doing that, you're probably eating whole foods, and whole foods come with a nice amount of minerals and vitamins. So at that point, do you need the multivitamin? Probably not, because your food takes care of most of it. So again, I don't give a shit about supplements. I just don't care. Like, you want to go black market supplements and you want to start doing PEDs and all that. Yeah, that shit makes a big difference. But that's not a supplement anymore. That's a that's a commitment.
Now, what I've found interesting since, not to be the study abroad guy and keep talking about Argentina, but since getting here, supplements aren't as big of a thing. The fitness
Oh,
culture is
really?
very different. Like, you're pretty much never going to find a GNC type
Huh.
store, online stuff. It's very different. So, and what you do find is egregiously overpriced because of much of what they have to get has to travel so far fucking south to get down here. By the time
Uh,
it gets here, I mean, you mentioned 20 bag or excuse me, 20 bucks for a thing of creatine. I got to double check what I pay, but it's significantly more than that. So for the
holy
first
shit.
time, yeah, yeah. So for the first time in a while, I have often let there be lapses where I'm taking little to no supplements. And I've pretty much always taken that same stack you mentioned: vitamin D, magnesium, fish oil, creatine. And there have been several stretches now where I've taken none of those things because either I can't find them or the prices are just fucked up. And I don't really notice a difference on a daily
Yeah,
basis. I'm not saying they're unhelpful entirely, but like, even if you were giving me fake pills in my little organizer thing,
you wouldn't
I
know.
don't, I can't say with any level of confidence that I would know. Um, I mean,
I'll,
sometimes,
if I miss a
yeah, go,
testosterone injection, I'll feel it.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like that's the stuff that matters. Like GLP-1s. You take those, you got to keep taking them. Hormone replacement therapy, you take those, you got to keep taking it. Blood pressure medication, blood sugar regulation medication. Like these things are they're essentially life-saving or quality of life-saving preserving things. But supplements, I mean, they're called supplements for a reason. It's a completely unregulated field. You don't even know what you're buying half the time, especially now if you're buying it off Amazon. There's so many counterfeit thorn supplements and all this other shit, like high quality people that are getting ripped off. It's the Wild West. And most of it is probably placebo anyway. Like, does the fish oil I take make any meaningful difference? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any standard data of an environment in which I've taken them or not taken them and seen any meaningful difference. Because I will, who's going to actually experiment on themselves and collect any relevant data on how that works? So to me, it's like if you haven't gotten the basics, like, is a multi going to hurt you? Absolutely not. Don't eat five of them in a day. But if it's a one a day multi, pop one a day and move on with your day like nothing happened and don't worry about it and don't expect anything to occur. Same thing with creatine. Like, or like with something like magnesium, like we know magnesium glycinate helps with sleep. So if your sleep sucks and then you start taking magnesium glycinate and your sleep improves and nothing else has changed, maybe magnesium glycinate works. But outside of that, we don't really know. We have no
Yeah.
idea. We know PEDs work. I can tell you to 100% certainty pharmaceutical drugs work, and I can tell you performance enhancing and drugs work like almost immediately. Like you upon injection and ingestion, like there's a reason recreational drugs work, right? Like I take MDMA. If you take MDMA, 30 minutes later, something happens immediately. You take a multi, it's not like, oh my God, the world is clearer now. Everything is
Imagine
so
that.
much clearer.
That'd be
I would be
great.
selling those
No.
things out of the back of my car.
No, that's great. It's a great, honest answer. And I don't want to keep you too long today, but before I let you go, I always wrap up my episodes with the fast four. So four questions that are different from health and fitness stuff, just whatever the first thing that comes to mind is.
Let's do it.
You ready? One band or artist music forever. Who would you listen to?
Tool.
I know of the band. I can't say I know any of
They
their
might
music.
they might have they might be getting a residency at the Sphere in Vegas,
Oh, okay.
which would be Andrew Coates is a massive fan of Tool too.
That's the only reason I know who they are
Yeah.
from Andrew.
He's you've probably heard Sober,
Okay.
Stinkfist. You've probably heard a couple of their songs, but yeah, Tool.
All right. I'll look them up after. Here's a question I chose for you specifically because I was curious. If you could only follow one training split for the rest of your life, what would you do?
Push pull legs.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean it gives me everything I need. It'll help me at least maintain the current level of physique I have because it has enough distribution across all muscle parts to where I would fulfill every requirement from a functional standpoint, like range of motion and just overall joint integrity and health. And I can always adjust the volumes within the workouts to be able to achieve even a little bit of growth if I wanted to.
sure. And you said you typically sprinkle in 3 cardio sessions as well.
Yeah, this past year, last January was really the year I didn't do cardio for 10 years of my life at all, like zero. I was the steps only guy, which is horseshit for anybody listening. Like if you're a fucking steps only person, you're not getting any cardiovascular improvement whatsoever, and your heart health
No,
depends on it.
no, it's even worse than that. And I know you know this well. The hardcore meathead community who says anything over 5 reps is cardio. Anytime you do anything even moderate to high rep where your heart rate's up a little bit, like you got some good cardio. Oh,
Let's put it this way. As a lifelong cocaine user and somebody who's worn a Fitbit for most of his life, I can assure you that my heart rate was north of 140 walking around bars in New York City when I was on my seventh or eighth bump. Does that mean that I was getting a cardiovascular adaptation positively out of that experience? Absolutely not. When you get freaked out and your heart starts to jump up because of it, during sex, your heart jumps up a little bit. Like these are not cardiovascularly significant events, folks, so don't use them as cardio.
I should have got into cardio at some point. We'll save that for another episode. What would you be doing if you were not a nutrition coach?
Probably something in the event space, hospitality of some kind. Like I've realized about myself that I like being like maybe not quite in nightlife, but I would certainly work within the nightlife community or within the entertainment community, whether it be like booking venues or organizing events. Like I genuinely do enjoy bringing people together and having fun.
I mean, that's a perfect segue to the last question I have for you today, which is what is your vision for the Real Coaches Summit? What is your goal over the next X years that you host it?
For it to survive, dude. Just for me to break even on it so it can just stop being such a source of stress and not I don't have to incessantly convince fitness professionals to come to an event that gives them a clear ROI. It's going to change over the next few years just because I'm watching what's happening in the industry and I'm seeing so many people want business advice versus trying to become better at coaching. So I think for next year, for 2027, what I'll probably do is instead of having both rooms have the same speakers in both rooms but swap, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to have one room be the science coaching track. So all speakers are going to be talking about fitness, nutrition, cardiovascularly related topics, and then one room being the business track. So that way, people that are missing, they can go and they can check out something for everybody type of thing. The spirit of the event won't change. I still want to be the only like I'm basically the only game in town now as it is outside of like local seminars. But there's not a lot of big events. Like Vigor is going to happen again this year. Luca's event will kick off in November. Or October, November. Allie's event, Silverback Summit, will continue to be the space for men's health. There's going to be a lot of fringe events. Like Gabrielle Lyon hosts a Forever Strong event every year that she's still going to probably keep doing. Kenny Santucci will probably keep doing New York Strong. Andrew Coates is done with his event unless he brings it back. I just hope to just survive, dude. I just hope to be the one place where people can get community, camaraderie, education, and what the vision really is for it to be like a place for a reason for you to come home. Like I want RCS to be the reason why you fly home, why you fly to America every year in April, just to hang out with your buddies and your friends. Like that's
For
what I
sure.
truly like. I truly eventually want it to be like. Do you have to go because you need it? No, but you look forward to it every year.
I mean, I wasn't kidding when I actually did I say this after or before I hit record, where I am legitimately factoring in this conference to potential trips to the US. Again, this year will be tricky because of visa stuff that I won't bore people with. But when I just look at seeing as many people as possible in our industry that I've connected with over the years, people that I want to connect with, obviously having the skill set, so like the social upside and then the skill set upside as well. Actually, one of your camera guys asked me to do a video testimonial after, and that's the
Oh
thing
yeah.
that I talked about was I've been to a lot of conferences where either there's an upsell into a mastermind or there's something behind red tape or no red card. What am I looking for? The you
Yeah,
use the analogy
the red velvet rope.
red velvet rope.
You got to buy the VIP ticket
Yes,
to get close to the speakers or get the meals.
yeah, stuff like that, which okay, it is what it is. But what I so again, the social upside, but then the coaching skill set upside out of all of the conferences I've been to, which has been quite a bit. Again, this is year 14 for me in the industry. I've been to a lot of stuff. I loved how the emphasis is on how to actually be a better coach, which I feel like people skip over that part so quickly now. Either they jump straight to online coaching, they make the transition from in person to online, which is what I did, but then get straight into like, how do I scale? And it's like,
Right.
and of course, that stuff all has its place. But as cliche as it is to say, I think for most people, especially in early to intermediate stages of business, there's no higher yield focal point business wise than getting fucking better at what you do. Yes, you eventually need to get better at making people aware that you're good at what you do, which is somewhere where I often drop the ball. I do the coaching stuff really well and I don't always document it. So I need the kick in the ass there. But yeah, I mean, this is, it's one of the best events that I've been to in all my time in the industry. So definitely something that I will continue to prioritize when planning for US trips.
Thank you, man. I mean, it's over the last 4 days, I posted a lot of like coach specific content on my normal 4 weeks to the beach page. And my strategy now is I basically have like written like a little tiny thank you post that I basically, once I see a coach share my stuff, I DM them and I say, hey, thanks for sharing. Just putting my event on your radar. It's coming up in April. Here's the event Instagram page. And the amount of objections of either I'm too busy, I don't have the money, And these are the same people that are going to go and spend, you know, 10 grand on a mastermind that's going to tell them to fucking cold DM people. It's the same people that are going to spend $3,000 on a photo shoot every year to update their website that nobody's looking at. They're going to spend stupid money on another NASM CEU that doesn't fucking hold any water in the real world. They're going to spend money on Lululemons and Nikes. They're going to go to music festivals every other weekend. They're going to eat out constantly. They're going to continue to have the audacity to charge people for their services. Meanwhile, they haven't upgraded their belief systems. They haven't upgraded their knowledge base. They haven't built a referral network. Dude, the amount of people in my phone that I refer to every day to help me do my job is wild. Like the other day, I have a client in upstate New York. She's having back problems. I texted Mike Stella, foremost authority on chiropractics and physical therapy on the East Coast. Mike, I got a client up in Poughkeepsie. She's dealing with back problems. You got anybody up in that area? 3 seconds. I get a phone number. Boom. I sent off to her. She's on a table within the next 24 hours. That's what coaches are missing. You know what I mean? And they're going to sit in front of their computer and they're going to hang out at their studio that they work at and train people at. And that's the tiny world they're going to live in. And they're going to keep wondering why they have one foot in and one foot out, and why they never make this a full-time career if they want it to be. And it's just so upsetting that I have to fight to get coaches to come to this thing. Like it should, like if this event existed when I first got in the industry, I would have sprinted towards it with open arms because there's no other place where you can get an education at that level outside of the Perform Better or NASM or NSCA conferences, which by the way, if you go to those, recycled speakers every year speaking about the same topic they spoke about last year, almost verbatim half the time, and no originality ever. And that's what it's and then the prices for these things are astronomical. And there's no amenities. Like they're not, you don't go like you've been to conferences where you got to fucking figure out where am I having lunch? What am I going to grab for breakfast? I got to go take an Uber 25 minutes to this thing and that. Like it's so inconvenient half the time. And like, oh, the event page is 1,600 people right now. And I posted yesterday, I said if 5% of you bought a ticket right now, I could justify hosting this again next year because I won't lose money on it. Because I don't use, dude, I don't make any money on it. I lost 30 the first year. I lost 75 the second year. Last year was my best year. I only lost about six. So over the course of 3 years, I've lost $106,000 of my own money with absolutely nothing in return outside of stress and some satisfaction that it occurred. I don't sell a mastermind at the end of it. I don't, dude, I have an email list of 500 coaches that I talk to for free on Fridays that I don't charge a penny for. And I've been told it's better than any business coaching they've ever had that they've been charged for. Like, I don't know how else to put myself out there. And dude, I'm paying for ads this year. I'm paying $1,000 a month for an ad agency out of Long Island, plus whatever ad spend I have to spend on Facebook, on Meta and whatever else, which is another couple $100 every few days. It's bearing fruit. There's people showing up onto the event page, but like then I have to DM them and fucking try to get them to come. But it's just wild. And I don't know if it's because people just don't trust that they'll be in the industry for long enough to want to make the investment. I don't know if they think they're above it and they already know everything. I don't know what it is. Like for me, I'm never big enough or smart enough to be in those rooms.
Yeah, it's something I find interesting, inspiring. I don't know what you want to call it at events like this. I also think a Luca's event as well is often, not always, but often the most engaged people who are still seeking out new information are the most veteran coaches. Like I still remember it, Luca's event. Do you know Mark Magna by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Megna's in the front, not talking to anybody, furiously jotting down notes. This is, former New England Patriots player, owns multiple gyms in Miami, longtime fitness professional. He's sitting in the front jotting notes. Kenny Santucci as well,
Yep.
gym owner in New York, hosts this huge event, whatever. He's like, what am I missing? Is there something I could be getting here? So obviously something to learn from the OGs, the people who've done it at a high level for a while. So
But that's why they're there and the other people aren't. It's no different than why some people will get results with nutrition and fitness and others won't because they're going to go above and beyond. They're going to invest in things that other people won't invest in. They're going to prioritize things that other people won't invest. Like success is a minority game. Not every like most people are just not going to be successful. However you define that, whether it be financial gain, whether it be fulfillment, whether it be the impact that they make on other people, but most people are just going to exist and they're not anymore. And unfortunately, the burnout, I think the churn rate now for coaches and trainers is like 2 to 3 years. By that point, people are in and out. Like, so you and I, you're 14, I'm 16. How many people have we watched come and go that are no longer in this industry and like they're gone, poof, disappeared, never to be seen again? Because not everybody can hack the ups and downs of this industry. Not everybody has good fulfillment or good ability to get people results. People don't have these types of exposures to be able to have these types of collaborations. How many coaches do you know that are complaining that nobody wants to look at their stuff? Meanwhile, they post content once every 3 weeks. It's like, well, of course, yeah, nobody cares about what you have to say because you don't say anything. And your clientele base isn't even convinced you know what you're doing because you're not convinced you know what you're doing. So it's sad, dude. It's sad to watch and it's sad to have to fight for it. But like, if I don't, I take it so personally responsible that like, if I don't do it, who else is going to? Like, I don't see anybody else stepping up to the plate. Like, yeah, Luca does it, but like Luca's conference is very much more on the business side of things, which is why I go. But even he, like, he doesn't fucking, I mean, I think he might sell because he has a B2B product. I don't have a B2B product. I only coach end users of fitness and nutrition information. But like Luca, but even he doesn't incessantly sell his own shit at his own conference. Like people just respect him and trust him to buy whatever he's got because they love him. So I love there's so few of that level of integrity left in this industry because everybody's got some ulterior motive to sell you something at the back end because they've lost money on the event on the front end. Whereas for me, I'm just like, oh, this sucks. It stings. I'm gonna go pull out of my credit card to take everybody out on Tuesday night on my own dime. And it's whatever, man. I can bitch about it all I want. I made the decision to host it. I'm gonna keep making the decision to host it regardless. And unless it becomes so financially unreasonable for me to do, it's going to continue to live on, and I'm just going to keep adjusting and adapting to the environment so it gets better, or at least it changes so I can survive.
Course. Now, if somebody wants to learn more either about your fitness and nutrition coaching or about the Real Coaches Summit, what are the best places to send them?
So if you're a person who's looking at like fat loss, muscle gain, that kind of stuff, 4 weeks to the beach at the numbers 4 and 2 at 4 weeks to the beach is where I have all my nutrition fitness stuff. And then if you're a coach or an enthusiast who wants to be around coaches and learn from coaches, then real.coaches.summit is the Instagram page for this for the event. It's coming up April 26th to the 28th. It's 12 hours of relevant practical education, which Sam has already vouched for. It's all meals included, including coffee and water all day long, which is a change from last year, which we didn't have that. And that was a big problem for everybody. So this year I made sure to include that. There's socials every night, and then there's an after party afterwards on Tuesday. And then it is CEU eligible by petition. So you can get, I think, up to 1.2 credits depending on what organization you're filing with. And the whole thing is tax deductible if you're a fitness professional. So if you're somebody who's actually got their own business and LLC established, you can use this as a tax write-off. So all of the expenses that are paid for, whether it be flight, hotel, coffee while you're there, whatever the hell, all of it's tax deductible because it's all in the spirit of personal development. So there's that aspect of it. There's also a payment plan if you want to chop up the payments. Like I don't know how much easier I can make it for you guys.
Beautiful. Well, I will include all of the links to those, of course, in the show notes. And Aram, I do appreciate you being here. Like I think I said earlier in the episode, as I mentioned when I came on your show a while back, you've definitely influenced my coaching quite a bit, especially the element of not beating around the bush. I definitely fell into I want to say over compassionate, but just beating around the bush so much, I was doing people a disservice with what they needed to hear. And I feel like I've found, I mean, ideally, I've found a sweet spot. I'd like to think between the tough love thing, but not just being a dickhead, like a compassionate tough love. And again, I can credit a lot of that to you and first getting exposed to your content and your coaching style, then following suit in a lot of ways. So again, I do appreciate it.
It means a lot, man. I mean, you're not only one of the most technically skilled people in this industry, but you're also one of the most reasonably empathetic people in this. And I say reasonably empathetic because you don't just shower it onto people without having them earn it first. Because I think empathy overused becomes complacency and it becomes permission to just fuck off.
Sure.
And we're clients pay us way too much money and want results too badly for us to do that. So if we keep people stuck in a pattern of complacency and average, why did they sign up in the first place?
100%. Again, brother, I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, man.